Over 70% of sports coaches are volunteers, and less than 5% are paid coaches working with professional athletes. We all want to help others improve and get better, but we can't all spend hours on every single person. I've coached thousands of hours, read thousands of papers, and spend most of my days thinking about sports coaching. In this video, I want to discuss long-term skill development, working with various types of people at the same time, and how I stay on track. But first, Chapter 8 in the book Becoming a Sports Coach is a good starting point for those interested in reading more about the science. When I was at school, I remember being told about SMART goals in GCSE PE. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and then time-bound. Then in sixth form, I was told them again. At university, in my sports science lectures, they talked about them again. But when I was coaching the kids playing football or handball or in the gym, they weren't interested. When I was working with young adults in athletics or various other sports, they again weren't interested. Working with SEND individuals, special educational needs and disabilities, also not interested. Grown or retired adults, not interested. I could get a goal out of any of them after a bit of questioning, but the next week, gone. They don't remember. But it wasn't that they didn't have a goal or they didn't care. They did. They knew exactly what their goal was in the moment. The issue was, they didn't really look beyond that session. And if they did, it was either years into the future, playing professional sport for some team, which was highly unlikely and also very vague, or they had a skill or wanted to learn a very specific externally driven achievement, like score X amount of goals in a season, or win X amount of races, or save X amount of shots. Professional coaches, and likely more experienced coaches, will do a needs analysis. This could be a couple of quick questions, or an extensive set of tests. The aim is to collect loads of information about where the person is at and where they want to go. However, what tests do you do? What questions do you ask? And how relevant is it? I know how useful a needs analysis can be, but it has the same issue as asking for a goal. They often aren't interested, forget about it very quickly, or the answers are sort of just plucked out of the air to answer the question at that time. This is why I do a dynamic needs analysis. Are they physically capable of completing the skill they are trying to learn right now? Yes? Do nothing. No? Well, maybe I take some notes and reassess next time they attempt that skill. GAS, General Adaptation Syndrome, happens all of the time, so practicing could be enough. If it isn't enough, then I might intervene and add a physical program. Then what technical elements might be useful for them to practice to develop the skill they are trying to learn right now? If they are exploring different solutions and are safe, I can observe. If they are doing the same thing and getting frustrated, I might intervene, but I also note down what I did. Most of the questions you might ask in a needs analysis can often be answered by just observing practice and taking notes. The most important question being, does it look like they are enjoying themselves? Not necessarily laughing because, well, they might be frustrated learning a new skill, but turning up, asking questions, engaging with the activity. Looking back on the notes then gives me an idea about likely paths forwards in the future. But future plans rarely go to plan. When working with Olympic athletes, you will probably have a 4-year plan, or at least a 2-year plan. During my master's degree at university, strength and conditioning, I remember making loads of these periodization plans inside of Excel. Some could look quite overwhelming. I love Excel, but I do understand why some people don't, maybe even hate Excel. You can sit there for hours and hours and hours and hours, putting in the major events, then the minor events, the other events, the testing dates, then working out the mesocycles in the larger macro cycles, creating microcycles, looking at the training phase they're in, and then preparing for the next major event, looking at the technical, the physical, the psychological, the tactical, and any other alls that might have been measured in the needs analysis, and making sure there is a nice balance across all of those areas. But then an injury or an unexpected holiday or a family event throws the plan off by 1 week or maybe 2 weeks. Then a few weeks in the future, another week goes out the window. And now you're back again at your spreadsheet typing things in those cells. But I don't think that's worth it. Having a future plan, yes, definitely. The granular detailed plans, not so much. My coaching philosophy is built around skill development over time, rather than competitive outcomes. So there will be some differences here, but just like my personal calendar, I have an ideal plan, and then what actually happens. Instead of a unique plan for every single person, I have an ideal plan which changes slightly. For example, someone might have a competition no one else has, so that will go in for them and not the others. But all of the other granular stuff is worked out automatically, giving me some guidelines. Then the dynamic needs analysis I mentioned earlier helps me make notes for future sessions and see if they are staying on track or in line with the ideal plan. Which, if you don't have a measure, can be pretty challenging. Every sport is unique. Every person's reasons why they're playing sport is unique. And when we think about all of the skill development, well, every movement is unique. So picking a measure or certain metric to keep track of is really hard. Like in trampoline, there are a few categories. How high can you jump? How much do you move around the trampoline? How hard is the skill or combination of skills, a routine, and what does it look like? But it isn't as simple as, well, higher is better. In competition, the higher the score, the better, but that is in competition and for a routine of 10 skills. Jump 1 might be the highest you've ever done that skill before, but if jump 2 and 3 are much lower, your total score might actually be lower. So we want height over multiple skills, but the height of one skill still matters. Then when training, they might be tired for various reasons, so they can't get to their best height. So what height is good enough in practice? Travel, difficulty, execution all have similar questions about what to measure and what to do with the data. There is endless amounts of data we could collect and let the sport analysis go through, but professional grassroots coaches can't. I don't have the time or the money to pay for someone to do that. Instead of using these objective, measurable metrics, I measure motivation. I'm not talking intrinsic and extrinsic, and I don't give everyone questionnaires. It's as simple as it sounds. Do they want to get started? Do they want to do more? Do they want to stay longer? When I hear comments like, wow, that went really fast, to me, that's a good sign they were fully engaged in the activity. Yeah, there could be other reasons why they've said that, but after a quick look at them, trying to stay on the trampoline or doing things, it feels like a positive sign. And yes, I do use other metrics depending on the person, but most of the metrics around whether the session was fun or not. Not messing around, playing games fun, but the kind of fun that makes you want to go back or keep going. And that is the fun first philosophy I talk about in this video.